Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Rocket Monday, we're going to talk about Virgin Galactic update. So let's dive deep into it. So all the hype about Virgin Galactic started on Unity 2022. Not 2022 as in like Unity 22, and the reason was that this was the first crewed successful launch. They had crewed launches, but none of them were successful. This was the first crewed successful launch, meaning they achieved what they wanted to achieve. This happened on 12 July 2021, and they achieved 86-kilometer height. Now if you're like, wait a minute, doesn't that mean they did not went to space simply because 100 kilometer is the carbon line? Yes and no. Yes for the whole world, no for USA and NASA. They have a much lower ceiling for some reason, but it is what it is. And they got a lot of press attention, but they disappeared after it. Like this happened in 2021, July 2021. What have you heard afterwards? Nothing. Poof, gone, zero, nothing. So the idea is, what people are speculating is that this was a rushed job, meaning they must have got some good data that this is gonna happen very soon. As in, Blue Origin's tourist rocket is gonna launch very soon. So they rushed this puppy to completion as quickly as they can. The reason for that, if this had happened first time, as in like the first time any commercial entity gave us space tourism as an option, this would have poofed out of existence simply because this has double benefit. First, it's a rocket. Second, it actually goes to 100 kilometer, like actually crosses the carbon line, meaning European people will also be interested into that because, hey, money. Hey, if I'm giving the money, I do not want a second-rate experience. I want a first-rate experience. And here's the ironic part of it. The people who can afford this ticket are very close to this ticket also. It's one of those things. Those who have will gain more. Those who have nothing, they will lose more. It's one of those things. So if you are actually rich enough to buy this, it's like close enough from you. Like, of course, it will still take some significant amount of money, but given the fact that all the tickets are booked here and it's actually flying and launching multiple times, which already happened. I think 4 paid missions have already been done. So that fundamentally means there are more than enough rich people here. Here, on the other hand, it creates an issue where it's like, you're paying a lot of attention, but you are not even crossing the space line. So it's one of those things that creates the illusion or perception that this was a rushed job. On top of that, it was basically done to overshadow Blue Origin, nothing more than that. And it was mostly done for saving investors. So this happened, it's a past tense. Then we come to Unity 25. What happened to 24? 24 was a crewed craft testing mission, which was done. It was successful, but it did not went to suborbital height. However, this puppy happened on 25 May 2023, quite recently. And this gap between 2022 and 25 is basically 1 year 10 months. If they were delayed by 2 months, they would have been like a clean gap of 2 months. So that's a very big thing. On top of that, it's not paid customer. Blue Origin directly went from, we tested everything good, paid customer, go. Here it's like no paid customer. So what was the point of this launch? Well, mission objective completed. Final assessment of VMS, basically the main vehicle, and VSS Unity, the launcher craft, and commercial spaceflight operation. It's like, can we do it? So they figured all that puppy out, and evaluation of end-to-end astronaut trainings and spaceflight experience. Now this is a very critical aspect. Even though this is much lower stress compared to a rocket launch, this is still a rocket launch, and still things could go bad. So you have to be in kind of a scenario where you can handle some acceleration, some brute forces and all that jazz. So you have to be like kind of built. So how do you know that you are built? They test you, they train you, they fly you in fighter jets in order to test your G-force endurance. So that's why there is a whole slew of things that you have to do before you get to ride into this. They do not need to, but it's one of those things that it's better to be safe than sorry. It also helps from company's liability point of view. So it's one of those things that really needed to smooth that puppy out. So the second test was all for that. And it achieved around 82 kilometers in altitude, and it was safe, stable, without any incident or boom bam blim, which is a very good thing. But gap is huge. Let that sink in. Gap is huge and still not a paid customer. So we come to orbit part. Basically, Virgin Galactic was the first daddy company. It made a daughter, which was Virgin Orbit, and that Orbit went bankrupt at this point in time. Now, why the heck that happened? Well, their target, as in like what Virgin Orbit was gonna do, is basically do this. Basically, fire a big ass missile to orbit. As simple as that. They're gonna use a big ass plane, basically jumbo jet for it. So nothing but just take a fighter jet, scale it up to a jumbo jet, take the missile, scale it up to an orbital class rocket. That's all there is to it. Now, what will they offer? like, because there are many companies that are giving you small rockets direct launch and direct to orbit. So why the heck you want to go with this? Their core target was two things. First, quicker, meaning you call us up, we get your stuff into orbit as quickly as possible. Second was cheaper. They're supposed to be cheaper than every other option on the market. So these two things were their core USP, and with the flexibility of air launch. Now this is very desirable for many certain scenarios, not for common day-to-day operations, but certain scenarios is like shut up, take money. For example, let's say you need to launch a CubeSat, which military does launch, but again they may require, it's like phone launch now. So they cannot have the luxury of like, hey, we are waiting for like 6 month slot. No, launch as quickly as possible. Many times they could commandeer a rocket that is in the vehicle assembly building and just yoink the payload out of it. They can do that. Generally they don't, and that's why we have spares, hot spares in space. But there are scenarios that has been requested, and that's why US Space Force is requesting this sort of tool set where they are like, no, we want it, we get it. Like if you heard about Astra, why the heck they were getting money from Pentagon? That was the idea. It's like Pentagon needs something that they're like, hey, something bad happened, we need a satellite now, in that exact orbit now, get it done. So instead of waiting months, get it now. It should become as least as quick as like 2 to 3 days. This was a very good contender for that. So there was a demand for it, quote unquote. However, they built it, they launched it, they tested it, and they even deployed some satellites. Consequence was they got the worst of all. Basically, many times we hear about making something hybrid, generally or backfires. This is what happened here. It also backfired because in terms of cost, raw cost, big rockets are cheaper, flat out. There is no way getting around it. You make a small rocket, it's expensive. You make a big ass rocket, it's cheaper. So if you make a bigger rocket like Falcon 9, it will bitch slap this puppy in terms of cost. You make an even bigger rocket, let's say Starship, it will bitch slap Falcon 9. It will always happen the same way. The bigger the rocket you make, the cost of tonnage goes down. Basically, $1,000 per ton, or $20,000 per ton, or $50,000 per ton. You can only get low cost if you have building a giant rocket. So physics is like, nope, it does not like tiny missiles. So they are like, nope. On top of that, space tug is a new technology that is being worked on as of now, as we speak to you. This technology is, the idea is that you're gonna have a big ass rocket. That's awesome. They're gonna have a main payload. That's super awesome. But you're gonna have this tug. That tug is gonna sell a slots of itself to other customers. Now, the reason why other customers do not like to use big ass rocket, which is very cheap compared to this puppy, is simply because you have to go where SpaceX Falcon 9 is going. So if Falcon 9 is like, okay, this is my main mission orbit for this daddy as a payload, that daddy payload defines where other CubeSats go. But space tug concept is a very unique bypass of that. It's like, hey, instead of a CubeSat like relying on their own, I have a tug. Basically, I'm a big ass bucket. I'm gonna have multiple CubeSats inside me, and I'm gonna have small propulsion module. So SpaceX is gonna launch me, put me in the orbit, and then I'm gonna deploy myself using tiny thrusters, tiny rockets. We're gonna go where you need to go. So this is a basically delivery from the orbit of basically parent rocket to orbit desired by the CubeSat, and it can do that for multiple CubeSats. So it can go to one orbit, deploy one CubeSat, go to another orbit, another inclination, deploy a different satellite there, and it can do that multiple times. So that removes cost advantage of tiny rockets. It's like that actually turbocharges the bigger rockets. So bigger tugs, more cost effective, more selections you're gonna get in terms of orbit. So more and more people are like jumping into that. Now space tugs are not ready yet, but this is one of those things that if you're planning ahead, you will be placing your bet on space tug rather than tiny rockets. Then we come to another aspect. They are behind schedule, obviously, and failure also happened. So it's not like behind schedule, super safe. No, it's behind schedule and you also went boom. So that's one thing that pushed people off. Which people off? OneWeb. Now, OneWeb was the backbone of this puppy. The reason for that is whenever you are building a rocket, you have to understand, you have to have customer for it. You really do not want to stuck in a position where I have a big ass rocket. It has no customer. Like, why the heck you think SpaceX is building, Starship? For NASA's money? Hell no. NASA money is only 50%. So why the heck they're building it? Because of Starlink. Starlink is co-feeding with each other. For example, Starlink is like, hey, I need to build big satellite. Big satellite equals good. So we build big satellites, but here's how will you launch a big satellite? Even Falcon Heavy cannot do that. So we build big satellites. Now we need to build a bigger rocket. We built Starship. So we have big rockets, big satellite, they're getting married together, and we're gonna have a baby known as Starlink. So that's how it works. for them. That's why you always need customer before you have a rocket ready to go. OneWeb supposed to be the customer of this, meaning OneWeb should have been like, okay, we have 10 launches this month, 20 launches next month, 30 launches after that. That should be the cadence. Of course, I'm exaggerating, but the idea is you should always have like satellite lined up. Always, like, go as fast as you can. Now, SpaceX can do that. This cannot. And that created a scenario where OneWeb was like, okay, I'm going to pull out. Even though they signed a memorandum for understanding and some contracts were done, they're like, yo, I'm out. Now, this pissed off basically blew Virgin Orbit so badly, they filed a court case on that. But again, OneWeb was simple, like your cost estimate that you gave us, you are not meeting it. And your behind schedule is like a genuine thing. Be mindful, OneWeb is now being launched in SpaceX. So it's one of this. The moment that happened, that big pullback happened, like, they lost the primary customer because, yeah, military would love to have that, but there is no current war going on that requires it right now. They have not lost any satellite. There is no Kessler syndrome right now where they are like, we really need to launch satellite because it's only going to last 2 or 3 days. So none of those situations are real. So that means there is no customer ready. So they needed a customer ready. And the only customer that had big enough backlog where they're going to be satisfied for months or years, that's gone. So that started the downward spiral. And market is oversaturated. Every Tom, Dick and Harry is like small rocket, small satellites. And be mindful, all of them will be destroyed by space tug. And SpaceX already has the cadence to bitch slap everybody else. So you have a big ass rocket with big ass space tug that can deliver your payload to exactly where it needs to go. What are you selling again? Like, genuinely, what are you selling? What are you offering? Oh, I'm gonna dedicated launch. That itself is no longer sexy. Dedicated orbit, desirable. But again, SpaceX is giving you that on lower price. You may have to require a bit more patience, but that's tangible, doable. So market is saturated. Every country is building a small satellite rocket. So market is saturated. And physics does not like small. Like, it's one of those things of mathematics of volume to surface area. You pay for the surface area when you are building a rocket tank. What you are paying for? You are paying for the metal that goes into the tank. Of course, you are paying for the R&D, the design, but material-wise, you pay for the tank. But what happens if you make the tank bigger? Cost goes up. Yes, absolutely. But cost only goes up by square. But the volume, basically how much oomph you can carry, that goes up by cube. So it's always physics loves big rocket. The bigger the rocket, the lower cost per ton you're gonna get. Physics is clear on that. And what we talk about economics of scale. So a company that is like, I'm barely gonna manage 2 or 3 launches a year versus a company that's like, bro, 24 launches a year, 36 launches a year, 50 launches a year, 60 launches a year. You're not going to compete against that. You're just going to be destroyed. So economy of scale is against you. So what exactly do you have when you are building something like this? So bankruptcy was kind of predicted. It was like, bro, it's like all flash but no substance. Then we come to the asset grab. What happened to all the stuff that was built? Now, this is one critical aspect that you have to understand. Whenever you are talking about a company that is going bankrupt, does not mean they are valueless. That simply means they are over debt, so to say. What does that translate to? Think of it this way. Let's say I'm a company. I built a printer. That's super amazing, super awesome. But it took me a lot of R&D money. I thought it will be done in $1 million. It took me $10 million. Now it created a paradox for me. I cannot sell my stuff for lower cost than a certain amount. Otherwise, I will never recoup the investment. Or I go bankrupt. I go bankrupt because, again, I did increase the price. Nobody was buying it. So I go bankrupt. What happens after that? Here's the deal. Even though I'm bankrupt, the product is awesome. The product has the R&D of $1 billion, $10 billion R&D. So other company could be like, hey, you know what? That's awesome. That product, if we sell it at this sort of price, we're going to actually make a lot of money and we're going to get some lot of extra stuff. So they will be like, I'm going to buy this from a court, which is going to, take care of the litigation and all that jazz, the dissolving assets and all that. They will be like, they will have an auction. Who wants to pay for it? Be mindful, your company is already bankrupt and nobody bought the product for original price that you wanted to. So you have no longer control over it. So even if your stuff, let's say the stuff is $70 million, if the highest bidding you get for $12 million for it, you have to pay at $12 million. So many companies love bankruptcy, where they're like, you went bankrupt. Let me look at your portfolio. Do you have something interesting? Not. Yeet. Oh, you invested a lot of money. You actually developed something amazing. How about I take it for free? So that's how many companies get $1 billion of R&D done for free, so to say. Relatively speaking, like $1 billion R&D for $1 million. That's what's happening right now. So what is the biggest buyer? Biggest buyer is Rocket Lab. So Rocket Lab took a hand and is like, dhappa. They just do dhappa to Virgin Orbit. So Rocket Lab, bam, they did bam to this. Now you'll be like, why? Well, economics, $36 million for this puppy. So what does this puppy have? It's a building. That's good. Second, again, if they directly try to do all of this, what this factory has, it would have costed them more than $36 million. And not to mention, it would have also costed them time. This is a package deal. You buy it, you forget about it. But even if they were willing to, like, build it from the scratch, everything, it would have taken them time. Time is something that money cannot buy. And this is next to them. It's like, so meaning transferring people, transferring assets, everything. This is like shut up, take money. Flat out, even though if it could be cost 1-to-1, they will still would be beneficial for them to buy it. So they spent 36 million for the space, for the tooling, for stuff that is already built there. Because be mindful, those things, those printers, those CNC machines ain't cheap, man, ain't cheap. And the location, that's just like, so flat out, it's hopefully valuable enough for Rocket Lab to spend this sort of money. Now, why is Rocket Lab spending this sort of money? For neutron rocket. They need a big ass place to build a big ass rocket. So this place was available. So they are like, so they did that. Then we have Strata Launch. Now this company is specifically targeting hypersonic research and development, and they are gonna repaint Cosmic Girl into something like this. Be mindful, could they have bought Jumbo Jet 747? Not really. That model is old and, if I'm not mistaken, retired, meaning you cannot buy it brand new. So that's a big issue. On top of that, this Cosmic Girl did a lot of modification on a hard point. The wings already had an integrated hard point. The hard point was built there such a way that if these jumbo jets have engine failure, which they do, how the heck you going to ship a new engine? So they mount an engine there. It's like, and you have a 5-engine flying. So now the hard point was structurally pre-built there, but again, that was designed for, normal jet engines. So everything about it was built for jet engines. But to take that, port it to support a rocket, that does require a bit of extra love. Now that love is very expensive. Why? It's custom. It's not like, hey, I need a plane with a fifth pod spot that has been modified for rocket launch. That does not exist. So that means that job, that doing of that thing could be millions of dollars. Just doing that, even though it could exceed the cost of the main aircraft. It happens. That's why I said, like, R&D is super duper expensive. So Strata Launch is gonna get this Cosmic Girl modified, and they're like, hey, we already have a big ass plane. It has a pod space. It's pre-wired, pre-configured, everything done for high-speed rocket launches. So we're just gonna Control-C, Control-V it, or in their case, Control-C the logo, paste it here. So Strata, and that puppy is sold for $17 million. Yeah, for $17 million, this is like free. Like, you're getting this for free. The amount of money and research went into making that puppy airworthy. Be mindful, you can modify the plane for free. That's not an issue. It's just that the moment you fly, FAA would be like, bruh, sub bruh. So that modification, that stamp that this is airworthy, that itself carries a lot of money, value, and time. So the asset grab has already done. Now be mindful, these are the two major parties. There must be some other small parties, but these are the interesting ones. So what we can expect in the future? Now, future is Virgin Galactic is not looking so hot, so to say. It's not looking sexy. The reason for that is their expenses is going up. Year over year, their expenses is going up. And be mindful, it should go up simply because they are trying to build a next generation of this launcher craft. So, of course, they need more research, more development, more space, more stuff. So, expenses are going up. What about the revenue? Revenue is zero. Flat out zero. Now, is that normal? Absolutely. But it's only normal till a certain point. For example, you buy a big ass mall. That mall is let's say, long-term gamble for you. Let's say 25-year gamble. So what you will be expecting is like 5 years of losing money. Few years after that, I will be recuperating my money. And then hopefully for roughly, let's say 15 years, you will be just running on profit. That's why you will invest such a big amount of money on something unproven. Here, the same thing is happening. So investors are paying on this simply because they are assuming you're going to have $1 billion of turnaround per year. They're hoping for that. However, so far they have done nothing. Now, how can they achieve that? Is there a market for it? Yes. The market requires one critical aspect. They cannot charge more than Blue Origin, simply because that's a much better service as actual rocket and actual Carbon line. So that clips them. It's like, you cannot increase your price more than this. Okay, awesome, done. So how can you trick it? How can you bypass it? Do more of it. It's an aircraft. Launch it like an aircraft multiple times a month. So the idea is, if they can get multiple times a month going reliably, safely, they will stay afloat. Meaning at that point in time, they will not only have revenue, they will hopefully have profit, meaning they will not go bankrupt. However, their current system cannot do this. This was all flash. That's why I specify. This puppy was rushed almost. Whereas, like, again, not from an engineering point of view. This is how you do engineering. Same way SpaceX built Falcon 9. It was barely a 10-ton rocket. Then they made it more refinements, more modified. It became 20-ton rocket. Then they refined it more, 22-ton rocket. Then they refined it like Mark 4 variant, basically. At that point, it was super easy to reuse, comparatively speaking. Then they made the final variant, Block 5. That was like final, the end. Like, we cannot make it more efficient or something like that. Of course, we can still pour R&D money into it, but we're not going to get the exponential result out of it. So Block 5 was like, okay, now we're going to focus on Starship. This is something similar. This is Mark 1 project that works, that flies, that sorts everything out and teaches them everything they need to do. But now they're going to take this and delete it. Exactly like in Iron Man 1, when he takes the Mark 1 and yeet it. Same thing they're going to do. They're going to take it and yeet it and build Mark 2 with all the learnings of this. So it will be much more efficient and quick to refurbish. Now, the problem with this puppy is that it's using a hybrid rocket, meaning not only it has a liquid oxidizer, it has a solid fuel stack, so to say. So that stack needs to be pulled out, replaced there, and it's a rocket thing. So it cannot be just like, bam, it is not a AA battery. So it's something that has to be done very methodically, very carefully. And be mindful, fueling a rocket is a very dangerous thing. Fueling a solid rocket, so fundamentally, it's expensive thing to do. And it's already delayed. So it's one of those things. So their future, while it is something that is hopeful, something, there are some probabilities here, but it's not looking great, so to say. And Richard Branson himself could have bailed out the basically Virgin Orbit, but he did not. That gives a very bad omen, so to say. So this was my presentation on update of Virgin Orbit and Galactic. Hopefully you have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.